Hello, it's Rose Topaz here, and I want to talk about how we're going to wrap up the course in creative writing and what I need you to do this week. I've just made a 19-minute video that I decided is too long, so now that I know what I want to say more precisely, I'm going to make this one go a little bit faster. I guess the most important thing is that I need you to finish your stories, and I want your stories to have ostensibly at least a beginning, a middle, and an end. A number of you gave me very nice starts to your short stories. You polished up what you had written before and added a little bit, but that was the problem. There's only a little bit. And I don't know that I issued any words of panic on my commentary to you, so I'm saying it as a blanket statement to the whole class. It may not apply to some folks who've already written me 15 or 20 pages, but for those of you who just have an opening scene of 3, 4, 5 pages and the story hasn't really taken off yet, you just have to try to write through and get them done. And proofread them, go to the writing lab, have a classmate, a peer, your grandma, husband, significant other read over your story, or you read it aloud to that person or persons before submitting it. You have only one item that's due, and it's not due until December 1st, but then I absolutely need it by midnight on that date. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and that is your short story manuscript in whatever polished form you have it for that date. Your stories are most important to me as a product for you to have the class read and provide feedback for. I am not going to be extremely harsh on the stories in terms of grading. I would like you to have them polished, and I really feel like I'm going to make a separate technical grade separate from the content score so that I can concentrate on the content alone when I put my grade on your story. The main thing is to finish your story and proofread it. Finish it in whatever way you think you're feeling it should go at the moment. It's very hard to critique the content of someone's story. What can be done is we can give you feedback on questions we have that maybe aren't being answered in the text, on characters that we'd like to see fleshed out more clearly, on situations or incidents or consistency. There was one draft that I received that had 2 different ages for a character, and so that's just part of the creative process. You're maybe still working out, how old do I want this character to be? So you have to work out details like that. You know, in film, when people study films, they look for continuity mistakes, like a character who has a checked hat in one scene and it's striped in another. Well, there were some continuity issues in some of the stories, and that seems to me is because you're still in the crafting process and you haven't worked out all those details. The grades on the drafts that I received, and I completed the evaluations of those yesterday, range from 35 to 50. Even though I've been harping in the writing that my commentary to you about your stories, about punctuation, the range of grades I gave between a perfect score and one that was lesser was 15 points. But I was disappointed that some of you haven't learned the comma of direct address or the dependent clause comma. Look those up with those terms on Google, comma of direct address in dialogue and dependent clause comma, or subordinate clause comma, there are 2 names for it, and try to learn those so that at least those 2 punctuation marks can be more aptly and appropriately used. And whenever you have a he said or a she said after a quoted passage, the he and she are not capitalized. I still saw that error creeping into some of your works. Again, it has nothing to do with the creativity or the concepts of the writing, but I want to see that technical polish. And I spent a long time, too long, with some papers on those aspects. I will be mailing back hard copies, but I wrote a feedback comment digitally to everyone, and in a number of cases made many digital comments as well. Those are the ones that just take an extraordinary length of time due to making the little pointer point right where you want it in the material, and all the small type where you're typing all of these comments. I love making comments, but it's just a very unwieldy, very cumbersome system. I think on both ends. I don't know. I don't find that it's always that easy to read all of the comments and see the little arrows, especially if your paper has a lot of them. But I do expect you to go over that material, and I will be giving you the hard copies back. I'm going to try to get them into the morning mail before I go to school. And yes, I have been mailing many of the items back to you with my own personal funds because it's faster than DMAC. The last work did go out through DMAC because I couldn't make it to the post office in time in a bad rain. I had like 35 minutes and I didn't think I would make it, and I didn't want to speed. So that last mailing did go out through the college, but I will be mailing these myself. You should have them no later than Wednesday and hopefully by Tuesday. And you should get your stories, just keep going and finish up, your manuscripts as best you can. How is the final going to work? In my face-to-face classes, we meet for 2 hours and everyone gets about 10 minutes to hear the entire class comment on their story. In most workshop programs, in Master of Fine Arts programs, creative writing programs at the undergraduate and at the graduate level, as I've just mentioned, there's what's known as the cone of silence, where the actual writer has to sit there and listen to what everyone says, and then the writer gets a turn. We can't quite duplicate that, but what we are going to have happen is each of your names will be put on a grade column in the course, and you will be sent hard copies of everyone's manuscript. I just think it's much more accessible if you have a hard copy. And I will ask you to post comments about the manuscript that you've read in a blog format. If you would like the class to answer a specific question or 2 or 3 that you have about your manuscript, about a character, about how you use dialogue, about a plot point, about any particular facet of your manuscript that you're worried about or that you want some feedback on, please include those questions as you did in these second drafts. Include those questions at the end of your manuscript on a separate page, please, and I'll remove those pages and put those questions into your particular blog. In the past, I've had students actually mark on the manuscripts and submit those back to a student in the class. That will be a little bit more problematic, and I guess I'm just going to ask if you have someone that you've been working with perhaps privately in this class or communicating with over the semester, and you personally feel like you would want to give that person some line editing feedback or comment. All of the material will be up there. I mean, when you submit your material, well, it will be online, and I could make those attachments available to the whole class so that if you wanted to pull off your own hard copy and send someone back a line edited copy for their story, you could do so. And I guess what I would say is if that happens and we decide that we want to do that as an extra step, or if some of you do, I would consider that extra credit. And you would have to report to me or show me or send me documentation of that, a line edited manuscript, and then I could give some extra credit for that. Let's think that through a little bit more. I mean, that's another layer that I could add for the benefit of the people who are the most serious about their work and really do want the feedback of someone from the class, because that's where the value of the class is. It's not, I've composed this series of exercises and weeks of lessons from the materials that you've purchased, and the real value for you, or the value added benefit, is that you should be using each other, and you should know enough about each other through your dialogues on the stories and know the kinds of writers you want to work with, or the few people in the class that maybe you most are impressed by for their analysis of other short stories, or for other comments that they've made in the course, and you want them to specifically read your story and give you feedback, then I think that's why I would want to do this extra step. But I would make it extra credit. I need to kind of see how unwieldy it is just to get the basics done. And the basics are that each of you will get a column in my grade book with your name on it, and each of you will have to post a comment about that person's story. And it can't just be, I liked your story. It's going to have to be targeted to some questions I will pose. And if you want specific questions answered about your story, you need to include those on a separate sheet, like I said, with your story. And I will put that directive in an email to you and in the course content. So if you want a specific question answered, I'm not requiring that. If you don't ask for any specific comments, I typically have you, all the students comment on plot, dialogue, setting, character, the components of creative writing that we've studied. I have you make targeted comments about those components in each of the stories. So that's where it's at. You've got to write your story, and all you should concentrate on is your story from now through December 1. Get your story finished, get those uploaded to me, and then from December 1 till the end of finals, December 10 days, but it'll probably be 9 days. I'll get the stories out on the 2nd. In those 9 days, you'll need to read a story from every surviving member of the class, and you will need to write a blog comment. You will not have to comment on peers' posts for these blogs, but you're welcome to do so if you wish. We have always had a 2-hour final in creative writing all the years I've taught it face-to-face, and the students never leave before the 2 hours are up. There's enough to say to each student writer. And your class is ending up slightly larger than most of my face-to-face. Most of my face-to-face are about 14 to 15 survivors, as I say, persistent people who actually turn the work in, or most of it, and stick it out to the end and complete their manuscripts. So I'm hoping for great things from you, and you're just going to have to really crank it out this week, get those stories done, and get the feedback and the benefit from the class. Those peer feedbacks and the blog credit mean more to me than whatever grade I'm going to put on your story. I've put a 300-point score in the grade box, but that may vary a little bit. I may change that. The final story is important, but it's more for the gifts that you give each other in your commentary than for me to slot you A, B, or C. I do always give my own grade, but I care about the peer feedback most of all. That's why we have classes. The class has value for the reading public that they represent and what they tell you about the stories. I just want to see them get done. Okay, that's my statement. Am I any shorter? Yes, I'm a little shorter. I'm 6 minutes shorter than my practice video. I'm going to stop now. I've tried to touch on some factors that are important to me, and I look forward to seeing your finished work. As always, I'm at school every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If you have questions, I usually let the phone ring and let people leave me a message, and then I call you right back. I will be checking email. I'm not going to Black Friday or going shopping. I'm going to be working on a lot of different papers that students are submitting over break. A lot of my classes have drafts due. So I'll be around. If you have a question and you need something answered, call me or write me. It would be nice if you write me, if you'd call me to tell me that you've written me in case I don't look at your email in 12 to 20 hours and you want an answer faster. Just say hi. You don't have to pick up. I'm Susie Q in your creative writing class, and I've just written you a couple of questions I have. Could you answer the email I've sent? That's fine. You can leave a phone message like that, and I'll go right to the email and locate that and give you your answer. If you want to talk with me in person, of course, I'm always glad to talk with you. And I think I look very tired right now on this video, and I am. And it just feels like I've been reading and writing papers for days and days, 7 days a week, every day. Anyway, look for a mailing from me before Thanksgiving. It's going out tomorrow. Call me if you have questions, and I've given you all online feedback as well. Take care and happy holidays. And you're almost through creative writing. Hang in there. Bye-bye.